Hello again, everyone, and good Tuesday afternoon. Welcome into the latest edition of Sportscall. I am Andy Graham alongside Brett Pritchard, and we'll be with you for the next 2 hours, taking your phone calls and discussing everything relevant in the world of sports. We'd love to hear from you, love for you to be a part of the program today, whether you're listening on 93.9 The Tiger or sportscallauburn.com. You can give us a call at 1-888-9-TIGER-9 toll-free, or locally at 334-887-3401. We'd love to get your thoughts on any of the things going on right now in the world of sports, and there is a lot going on right now. But Sports Call today brought to you by Home Place Mortgage. The Home Place Mortgage, they are the mortgage professionals, and they'll give you rates for all new home or refinancing mortgage services. They want you to come to the right place, and that is Home Place Mortgage of Auburn and Lake Martin. Check them out at homeplacemtg.com. Again, Andy and Brett here with you on this Tuesday afternoon. A beautiful afternoon, a little chilly out there, but the Alabama Crimson Tide defeated the Clemson Tigers last night, of course, 45-40 to win their fourth national title in the last 7 years. Very competitive game, very entertaining game. To be quite honest, I had gotten to where I didn't watch Alabama a whole lot, but I did watch that game last night, watched it from beginning to end. Very high level of talent on the field, very well played game on both sides, and certainly I thought Clemson acquitted themselves quite well. I think they answered a lot of the questions that people had about maybe them, the ACC, and all that kind of thing. They played exceptional, I thought, and the game really swung on about 2 or 3 plays, and those were the plays that Alabama made. Certainly we can talk about that, as everybody has talked about that today on the radio, sports radio, all across America. That is the topic, and certainly people will be talking about that for a while now. This may not be the show that you get a lot of that talk, but, hey, we'll talk about it because certainly it is news. Auburn officially hired a new offensive line coach, Herb Hand, as he comes over from Penn State, as J.B. Grimes heads to Cincinnati. There are more changes coming on the offensive side of the coaching staff. Now, who knows? Should there be? That's kind of our question of the day. Do you foresee any more changes coming in Auburn's coaching staff? The Auburn basketball team heading to Nashville tonight to take on the Commodores. Auburn, I don't believe, has won in Memorial Gymnasium since 2000. That'd be 15 years.
We got a lot of streaks in a lot of sports like that.
Have lost to the Commodores 10 straight times. So they're not a great team. They're 0-3 in the league. This would be the time for Auburn to break that streak. Hopefully Brian Matthews will join us at 4:30 today, and we'll get his thoughts on everything going around.
Let's go to the phone lines for the first time. James, you're on Sports Call.
Hey, guys. How you doing?
Good, James. How are you, buddy?
Good. Listen, yes, there should be some offensive changes to the offense. First, you need I think Gus either need to get more aggressive, or he needs to get a new offensive coordinator that can see some stuff that he does not see, because to me, football is about calling the right plays at the right time, play calling, defensively and offensively. And what Clemson did last night, they was calling, and granted, they got a great quarterback, but they got schemed. We got the same type receivers that they got. You can't tell me we don't. We just don't know how to utilize what we have. And if you put a real offensive coordinator in there, and I mean not a real one, because Gus is a real one, but if you put a coordinator in there and just give him free reign, like my man done the new offensive coordinator he got when my man Chad Morris went to SMU, Clemson done changed their whole offense. I mean, they do a lot of different stuff, and that's what I was talking about, Brett, when I used to say about Gus. If Gus could have kept the offense he had and added stuff to it as years go on, no, he would be unstoppable. But he never added nothing. Dabo done went in, got two new offensive coordinators. They done added to the offense that Chad Morris took up there. And I know we gonna holler, oh, they got a quarterback. We don't know what kind of quarterback we got, because we got them plugged in a square hole. If you get he got a freedom. And don't just say, look, there's a receiver open. This receiver should be open. That's where you should go go with the ball, or you give us real running routes where guys are running, hoping that they get the ball instead of everybody know it going to one guy. Clemson throw to a walk-on receiver. They throw to a freshman, Octavia Scott. They threw to the tight end. They did a lot of different stuff. And then for us defensively, and then you get a receiver coach that know how to coach a receiver. I think Gus can come back. And then you get a defense where your defensive line just ain't standing up there fighting hand-to-hand combat, and they moving. Clemson was moving. And that's what Lance Thompson did so great in the Birmingham Bowl. We did not just sit there and let Matavius Adam and number 94 just fight hand combat with people. We were moving them a little bit. And I think once he does that and get from being so conservative again, I always look at this guy. Nick Saban done evolved. Dabo Swinger done evolved. All these coaches evolving. Now it's time for Gus to evolve. Like I said, he got it in it. I just hope he hurry up and bring it out of it before we get going. Thank you.
James, we appreciate the call. We'll kind of go back to some of your comments there and add our 2 cents. Go right back to the phone lines. Curtis, you're on Sportscall.
Hey guys.
Hey Curtis.
I just wanted to ask you guys a question. You know, we hear a lot of negativity going on around Auburn, and that's understandable after our rough season. And I'll be honest, after watching last night, I've already convinced myself that we're going to start out the season 0-1. But just to get some positivity going, I'd like for you guys to convince me why we could start out the season 1-0, and I'll hang up and listen.
Well, appreciate it, Curtis. Before we kind of forecast or go into that and what we're going to be facing is the preseason #1 team in the country. I mean, let's just call it like it is. And, you know, outside of a special, you know, if Clemson doesn't have special teams collapse, I had an Alabama fan tell me this today, and he was sincere. He said, we hit big plays at big moments in the game. He said, Clemson played solid football from start to finish. They played a more consistent, more solid game. Jake Coker, you know, really didn't find his comfort zone in the first half and came out in the second half. Andy and I was texting in a group text last night like we always do during games, and I said, don't be surprised to see Jake Coker come out and have a very good second half. It's just what you expect, and he did. And I know the ball to Ardarius Stewart was a throw up down the sideline on a blitz on a 3rd and 16, but they made the play. And you know, Clemson, for some reason, just let O.J. Howard roam free a couple of times. And, you know, I thought they did a decent job on Derrick Henry, you know, as far as not letting him – he got one big run early in the game, but not much after that. But going back to what Curtis said, you know, what can convince you, Auburn's got to figure out their identity. To, you know, we look like a team and a program searching all the time to figure out what we're doing. And, you know, I think we had it figured out, you know, between 10 and 13, you take Cam Newton and Nick Marshall out. I mean, our bread is buttered running the football. And we've got to be able to do that in control. And we need to do tempo. We need to do things. And Clemson did it at times, but they didn't always go fast. They did a mix of it depending on what the situation was. And I thought that's what Gus did so well in 13. We didn't run hurry all the time, but we did it in selected moments when we felt like we had teams on their heels and they couldn't get going defensively. So, you know, I don't think, you know, talent-wise and whatever, you know, starting off the season, coming in, if you're going to catch them, I guess catch them early. You know, I know, but they're very good, obviously, and you're going to have your hands full. But, I mean, first of all, we got to find somebody who can take snaps consistently and give us a chance on offense, Andy, to win football games, because that's what we were searching for all year. And when you're searching for a quarterback all year long, you're lucky to go 7-6. And we'll talk about that some more, but that's just kind of my thoughts on it.
Yeah, I thought just to go back to the game right quick, I thought it turned on 3 plays, really. The onside kick, obviously. Well, the interception in the second quarter. Let's just start there. That was a huge play in the game. Clemson's up 14-7. They're driving. It could have been, if they get 17, if not 21-7, it may be a different game. If they get up 2 scores on Alabama, I think it kind of changes the complexion of the game a little bit. But instead, they have an interception, and boom, they're in the end zone. It's 14-14 before you blink your eye. So that was number 1. Number 2 was obviously the onside kick. It was a brilliant call. It was a risky call, but it was executed to perfection. I mean, they looked at something in the film and they saw the way they were lining up and they knew they could take advantage of it. And it was it was just you couldn't do it any better than they did it. So that was obviously a huge, because they end up scoring 3 plays later to take a lead. And then the kickoff turned back for touchdown. That was just a backbreaker. I mean, Clemson had come down and kicked a field goal. They felt like they had a little bit more momentum, and then boom, you're turning around, you're right back where you were. So, I don't think when you look, Clemson outgained Alabama through the air. They outgained Alabama on the ground, which I don't think anybody saw coming. For Clemson to have more rushing yards than Alabama did last night, so they did enough, and they played well enough to win the game. They just it turned on a few big plays, and obviously that the swing pass to O.J. Howard. You just can't. I mean, you can't let that bust for 50-some yards. And that's the difference between Alabama and playing Alabama and other teams. You can have a bust in a coverage and you can give up, 20 or 30 yards. But when you have a bust against Alabama, it's either a touchdown or it's 70 yards. If it's a missed tackle against Derrick Henry, it's a touchdown. So those are the kind of things. And that's the advantage of having just overwhelming talent against everybody that you play and having it 2 or 3 deep. So I kind of been saying that all year. But again, I thought Clemson played well enough to win the game. It turned on a 2 or 3 plays, like big championship games always do.
They lost special teams, and that's just the end of it. I mean, they lost the game on special teams. You can give up plays. Clemson.
Mackenzie Alexander getting hurt was huge as well.
Yeah, it was devastating, but you lost the game on special teams. And if you'll remember, going back in the first half when Clemson kicked off, when Alabama was going right to left, they almost busted one then. And, Andy, I looked at it, and I'm sitting in the house, and I told my wife and my son sitting there in the room with it, I said, while the ball's in the air and looking at the lineman, I said, he's coming left. He's running it this way. Watch. And they kicked it on the far left side, and he came back. I mean, if you're kicking left to right, they kicked it down there in the corner, and he brought it all the way back left. And I said, he's coming back this side. He took 2 or 3 steps out of the end zone and ran it back this way because they had nobody right hash over this way. I don't understand. And you watched them line up. They did that all night, and it's just how they did on special teams, but they set themselves up to get burned. And, they alluded to it in the broadcast that Clemson hadn't been a very good special teams team all year. They've just been fortunate in some cases. But, I mean, you lose. All 3 phases are important, especially in a championship game, especially when you're in a close game. And usually it comes down to the team that wins special teams. I know each team missed a field goal, but that equaled each other out. And but you cannot give up a 95-yard kickoff return. Ask Auburn about it in 2013. When a guy
brought back some painful memories.
Well, when a guy goes down from right there, blows a hamstring, and another guy gets out of his lane and opens up a Mack truck hole, and Whitlow takes it all the way to the end zone. So it's very, very, very similar to what Kenyon Drake did last night. They were able to bust plays on special teams, and they were able to turn the momentum of the game on that side.
Yeah, and you talk about O.J. Howard having a career night. That's not by accident. Okay, I mean, I'll give them credit. That's good coaching. I'll give Lane Kiffin credit. Maybe he missed the bus after the game, but he was in the stadium and beforehand, and he put a great game plan together. That's good coaching to see that you can exploit this matchup. And, they did that all night long, and Clemson just had no answer for it. So that's you just tip your hat and you say, wow, that's out coaching the other team right there. So, we'll up against our first break here of the Tuesday Sports Call. Presented by Home Place Mortgage. But when we come back, we'll try to talk about some of these phone calls we've had in the first, address maybe some of the issues James brought up, and try to convince Curtis why we have a chance to beat Clemson next year. Game 1 of the 2016 season in Jordan-Hare Stadium. Going to be interesting. Don't go anywhere. More Sports Call presented by Home Place Mortgage right after this. Welcome back, everyone, to Sports Call on this Tuesday afternoon. Andy and Brett here with you until 6 o'clock, taking your phone calls at 1-888-9-TIGER-9 toll-free or locally at 334-887-3401. Sports Call today brought to you by LMG. From ad placement to branding, LMG can handle it all. Logo design, it doesn't matter. They can handle it. They do all kind of marketing for cutting-edge, results-driven marketing campaigns. You think Lee Marketing Group, your comprehensive marketing solution. Be sure to check them out at leemarketing.net. Talking here about the national championship game last night, talking about the Auburn Tigers, that they'll face this Clemson team for the first game in the 2016 season. We were talking about it, and James brought up a lot of issues, of course, that, he brings up a lot of times. And, certainly not that he's wrong. Auburn definitely needs to, evolve a little bit and add to the offense. And the biggest part of that, I think, though, is quarterback. And you can say, well, Clemson, yeah, they've got Deshaun Watson, but that's a big thing. And Auburn was missing that this year. You mentioned that.
Well, we were really close to having him.
Well, we were close to having Mackenzie Alexander as well. It was down to Clemson and Auburn.
We got McEnroe.
For a while.
Yeah,
he's gone now.
Then Will Muschamp ran him off. So.
But look, as Auburn's got a lot of work to do, and part of that, Auburn brings in Herb Hand. He goes back to Gus Malzahn with his days at Tulsa. They put the number one offense in the country on the field 2 years in a row with their combined efforts. So I think Auburn's trying to maybe get back to that. They're trying to find some magic. It was kind of out of the blue, really, to me. I didn't see J.B. Grimes leaving. Don't know, it depends on who you talk to, but this, from what I hear, this was an Auburn Gus Malzahn decision, not certainly a J.B. Grimes decision. So, I think Gus wanted Herb Hand when he came to Auburn, and he got the head coaching job, and he was not able to get him at that time. So maybe this will certainly work out for the best. As far as Auburn facing Clemson in 2016, you look at the way Auburn finished the season on defense, and you look at what they have coming back. Defensive line should be a strength. The secondary should be a strength as well. A lot of depth in the secondary, a pretty good bit of depth if they hold this recruiting class together on the defensive line. So if they can build on what they finished the season like, especially in the Birmingham Bowl, you would hope that Auburn could put a formidable defense on the field next year. Now, trying to contain Deshaun Watson is, if Alabama couldn't do it with their defensive line, who can? So you just got to expect that he's going to do what he's going to do. That means you got to score points.
Isn't that what everybody felt like against Nick Marshall and Cam Newton? When you got a guy like that's what he's propelling himself into the talk of. You heard Nick Saban after the game last night. He said that's the best quarterback we've played since Cam Newton. He said that. That tells you a lot about that, and and he split with Nick Marshall. Won one time, lost one time, and I think that's kind of what the best. If you're Nick Saban, and I think he'd probably be honest with you about it, I'd be about the best you could hope for. Well, you want to win both. You want to win every time you go on, but if you have to face, that type of quarterback with some decent athletes around him, I think the best you could hope for would be the best you'd hope for is 3 out of 4. But what you'd expect to do, you'd feel like you'd won if you won 2 out of 4 matchups if you had to go head to head that many times. That's just the kind of quarterback that gives Alabama trouble. And Nick Marshall, even last year when Auburn didn't win the game, were able to stack up 44 points and move the ball up and down the field. And that defense was pretty doggone good last year too. It didn't like all of a sudden that defense didn't know how to stop. And then Clemson showed you again last night. And you just that is the recipe. LSU won't beat Alabama again next year because they're trying to beat them at their own game. Michigan State ran up against a buzzsaw, and even as poorly as we played this year, Auburn hung in there with 3.5 quarters with Alabama. And now, granted, Alabama didn't fire too well on offense outside of Derrick Henry. That was their lone bright spot, and Jake Coker made a couple of deep throws in that game. But outside of that, not a lot of consistency. And some bullets dodged in that game, early where we could have taken advantage of some things. But, it's really not about what Alabama's doing, Andy. That's the way I want to approach the rest of the show, and I know we'll have Brian Matthews on. It's the mentality of what we're going to do. You got to live in this state, and what they've done is you can't argue with them anymore. They're 4 out of 7. They won 4 national championships out of 7. Now, you and I have seen us go to 2 national title games in the last 5 years, and then you look over at in 2004, we were undefeated. I mean, we've had some good years, but Auburn's got to find a way to be consistent. They're 30-34 since 2008 in the SEC. We were 2-6 this year when we had preseason expectations to go to the national championship or to the playoff at least. They had us winning the SEC. Let's flash back to July. The media had Auburn winning the SEC and had Jeremy Johnson in the talk of early Heisman. And, that just shows you that things don't work out so well. But when things don't work out well for you, you can't bottom out to 500 or below. You just can't let your lows be that low and be a consistent power where you feel like you're rebuilding and you're setting your program back. So I don't know why that's been the case. We've caught lightning in a bottle a couple times with prolific quarterbacks, but outside of those years, Andy, it's tough. I mean, we've been in the last 8 matchups for Alabama, we're 2-6. And LSU is the numbers aren't very good. Georgia has on. We got to get back to playing. I just said something about you said we hadn't won a Memorial Gym in Vanderbilt since when?
2000.
How many of these streaks do we have in all these sports? I mean, it just seems like we rattle off these ridiculous streaks.
They're all negative.
And they're all negative. I mean, I don't understand why in the 80s and 90s we were building up, especially in football, into 2000, and then it becomes a situation where we're not a consistent program. So we've seemed to struggle with that for quite some time, and I don't know how we can bounce out of it. But, you look at Alabama and their discipline, and I wanted to talk to you about that for a minute and get everybody's thoughts on it. And a buddy of mine said it today. He said they almost kind of police themselves in the players. And the reason they push each other is because – and nobody really creates a ruckus or anybody gets out of line or does anything – is because there's 3 5-stars in every position almost. And you're not the man, and they can go on without you. If that's why you look at all these other national champions that have these prolific quarterbacks, and I'm not cutting on Jake Coker because he had a great game. I thought he had a great season. He's overachieved, I think. But Alabama can get away with not having such a dynamic quarterback because they have so many pieces around them. And if somebody decides they don't want to buy into the system, they just get rid of them and move somebody up. Well, we have 5 stars and 4 stars on our team, but we don't have enough of them to push each other. And when one of them decides they're not just going to play to speed, that their mentality is they need me a lot more than I need them. I don't have to go hard today. They almost police themselves, Andy, and they've just set themselves up, and he's built a program and put themselves in that position where it's hard to lose.
Good points. It's hard to disagree with any of that. It begins and ends next year for Auburn, to me, with quarterback. If Auburn can find somebody that can be that dynamic runner and passer in this offense, Clemson loses a lot on defense. You got Chandler Cox and Cameron Petway that are a year stronger and a year better in the system for blocking wise. You got a dynamic tight end coming in as a freshman. You got good receivers. So there's no reason that Auburn should not be able to put up 30 points a game next year offensively, and that's the only way that Auburn is going to have a chance to beat Clemson. There's not going to be that we're going to hold them to 10 points. We got to outscore them, and that's what that's the reason Auburn can win. They're at home. Clemson struggled with Louisville early last year. Okay, it's not like they're not, the world beater.
I mean, and don't get so caught up in one game to the next. I mean, you look at all that, and things take on their own personality. But what Auburn's got to do, Andy, is decide if in Auburn fans and the program, if they're happy with 30 and 34 over 7 years, if that's where you want to be. And you want to make excuses of why things didn't work out this year, or this isn't going to be. I mean, then that's what you're going to be. Or are you going to get to the point where it makes you so mad when you lose that you just can't see straight, and it's unacceptable. If that's where you want to be and you want to compete at that level, and if it makes you sick to look across the state and see what they've done, that's the mentality you have to change to. And you can say, "Oh, I don't want to be like that, and I don't want to do that." Well, that's fine, but that's where you have to be mental wise to be able to achieve the kind of success they've got.
No doubt about it. Up against the break here. Hopefully, when we come back, we'll be joined by Brian Matthews from AuburnSports.com. More to come. show. Give us a call, 1-888-9-TIGER-9, toll free, locally at 334-887-3401 on the hotline here at Sportscall. And talking about anything you'd like to talk about today, just give us a call, bring up any subject. We're talking about the national championship game. Obviously, that is in enormous news, as people talking about it all the time today. I mean, it brings up questions like, people are asking, is Nick Saban the greatest coach of all time? And, while I never thought, when Alabama hired him, everybody knew he was a good coach. Everybody knew he was a great recruiter. And you saw, of course, starting in 2008, the classes just started piling up and one right after the other. And certainly you made mention of that. And it just changes the dynamic of the team. And then when you've got people pushing you from behind, and you saw it last night, Alabama bringing in reserves, and they're making plays. Rashaan Evans. I mean, he hadn't really done much all year, but, I mean, he has just a kind of a breakout game now. I mean, he was in the right position, in the right place at the right time. And, that's just kind of part of it. But if you got any comments about that or certainly Auburn, opening up with Clemson next year, we talked about that too. But we'll go to the phone line.
Steve, you're on Sports Call. Hey, Steve, you with us?
Good evening, gentlemen. Yes, sir. Good evening.
Good evening.
War Eagles always. And I want to get your comments on something that has to do with commitments. More really would have to do with decommitments. And I saw where the 2017 quarterback, Narcisi, I believe his name, today decommitted.
That's correct. Mm-hmm.
And my observation also is that it unfortunately happens rather more often than I'd like to see it happen with Auburn, but it also happens with other programs, except I don't recall, at least since Saban's been there, any Alabama commits decommitting to any other program. Am I incorrect with that, or is that my recollection correct?
Oh yeah, they've been committed.
They've actually had a couple this year. So I mean, it's just it's gonna happen. I mean, you're gonna have some guys, but I mean their percentage of holding on to the ones that do commit probably is higher than anybody out there. But all these programs are gonna lose guys here and there. But what you got to do is just put yourself in position with enough of them to where when one does, that it doesn't kill you.
Okay, and I guess the other part of this is how do you explain that the drop-off from Alabama's starters to their replacements is almost in this you can't tell the difference almost, but yet you can with other programs when their starters are replaced by the secondary. How do you explain that, guys? I'll hang up to listen. Thank you.
All right, we appreciate it.
I think indistinguishable was the word he might have been looking for.
There you go. Well, what happens is, Andy, is what we talked about in the first hour. You build a program with depth of enough 4 and 5 stars where if you lose one, there's a guy that falls right back into place, and you don't really lose a step. I mean, everybody's recruiting 4 and 5 star guys, but not near as many as Alabama has over the last 7 or 8 years. And so you establish a line of depth where your players kind of police themselves, and you have that discipline instilled to where they go out and they fight their tail off on every play because they don't want to lose their spot because they know there's somebody just as good behind them. I mean, look at Derrick Henry. I mean, Derrick Henry's been pushed knowing that there's another freak behind him in Bo Scarborough. I mean, if you look at him and see what he is, you know that at a point in time, if he'd have hit a 2 or 3 game skid where he wasn't getting it done, that Nick Saban's not afraid to go try somebody else. And that's how it is. That's how they police themselves. And, I think Auburn, what they've had to do in the past few years due to scholarship reductions and players leaving and coaching changes and all that, is we've had to go out and really get some JUCO guys to fill those spots. And it's a quick fix, but you're not getting underclassmen. You don't get those freshmen, sophomores, and build them up the way you need to. So let's go back to the phone lines. We got several hanging right here, and we'll go to Anthony. Anthony, you're on Sports Call.
Gentlemen, how y'all doing today?
Doing good, Anthony. How are you?
About a minute and a half, Anthony.
Okay. Old Steve there is trying to figure out why people decommit. Well, people the players sit down and rethink their commitment. if I go here, will I be successful? If I go over there, will I be more successful? So, I mean, that's what it boils down to. I need to go to a program where they can develop me and put me in the best possible situation to be on the biggest stage, win championships or individual awards or whatever it might be. Another thing, Alabama has just done a tremendous job of recruiting a low stockpile of players where you got the third-string player. He's just as good as the first-string player, but he just might not know all the plays in total detail as that first-string guy.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you guys. Have a good one.
We appreciate you too. And, again, I think that's right on what we said. I think we lost Tony. So if you can call us back on the other side of this break, we'd appreciate it. We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, that's exactly what we've been talking about. Piling them. It's not that they're, that Alabama's been able to have such great success with their starters being across the board, and you're able to redshirt guys. You're able to build them up physically so they come in and they're ready to play immediately, and they get on the field, or they just you're coming in as a freshman. You play special teams for a year. You know that. Then you come in and you're learning the system, and you come in and you play right away as a sophomore.
Exactly right.
You look like you're a senior, but you're actually a sophomore. So it's just the system that they have.
Yeah,
works.
The
process works.
There you go.
Up against the end of the first hour of the Tuesday Sports Call here, but don't go anywhere. The Fox Sports Report is coming up next, and Brett and I'll be back with hour number 2 right after this.
When hurt in a big truck accident, make one call to Kenneth Ingram Jr. Alabama's interstates are the hot spot for careless big rig accidents, and people are getting hurt. When big trucks don't follow the rules of the road, that's when serious accidents happen. And that's when you need to call Kenneth Ingram Jr. We've got your back, and we'll fight to get you the maximum recovery. Make one call to Kenneth Ingram Jr., champion of the common man, 256-212-9700.
No representation is made that the quality of legal services to be provided is greater than that of other attorneys.
We are Steel, German-engineered chainsaws and landscape products.
The majority of which are made here in America by Americans.
And exported to over 90 countries around the world.
Find out why Steel is #1 in America at SteelUSA.com.
Find your Steel outdoor products and more at the new Satterfield Outdoor Living on Highway 280 in Alex City. Over the years, Lake Martin Community Hospital has served the Lake Martin area with a personal touch and grown to better serve your needs, including MRI services, a community fitness facility, wellness center, home health services, hospice program, full-service pharmacy, family medical center, and Lake Martin Community Hospital's emergency room is open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Whatever you need, whenever you need it. That's the personal touch that makes the difference at Lake Martin Community Hospital in Dadeville.
You're listening to Sports Call on Tiger 93.9, WTGZ, Union Springs, Montgomery, and Auburn, and AM 620 WTRP, LaGrange.
Fox Sports trending now.
The move to Los Angeles continues in the relocation process of a few teams, the Chargers, Raiders, and Rams. According to Sam Farmer of the LA Times, the first round of voting is completed. The Rams and another team to be determined in Inglewood gets more votes than the Raiders and Chargers in the city of Carson. Nobody at the required 24 out of 32 votes just yet. Ben Roethlisberger is a bit banged up, a sprained AC joint and a torn ligaments in his throwing shoulder.
I'm doing my rehab and treatment, and I'll go in tomorrow with the intent to see what I can do. I honestly don't know. I haven't tried to throw a football since the game. If anything, maybe I can, practice.
On the plane. Sports Call.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Tuesday edition of the Sports Call. Andy Graham, Brett Pritchard, and now joined by Scott Hardy for the second hour of today's show. The triumvirate, as it were. We appreciate so much you, all of you out there joining us today. Love to hear from you. Give us a call, 1-888-9-TIGER-9 toll-free, locally at 334-887-3401, and we'll go to the hotline to start the second hour.
Yeah, Tony, you're on Sports Call. Hey, Tony, you with us? He was there, and then he's gone, and then he's gone again.
He's a ghost.
So I think he's a ghost. Tony, give us a call back. We had to come off that extended break, but glad to have Scott up here with us. And this could be very interesting this hour as we add Scott in here. And look, I mean, we started off the program talking about Alabama last night and what they've been able to accomplish, and you can't really argue with that. And 4-7 is a phenomenal feat, but I opened up the show saying it's not about what Alabama did. It's from an Auburn perspective on this show, it's about what we're going to do moving forward and what we're accepting of. And we've had some really good years here in the last 5 years, and taking ourselves to 2 national titles and won one of those, and we're about a minute and 19 seconds away from winning another one, but it just didn't work out for us, Scott. And you said, you got to put it in perspective how old we are and what we've seen. I do get that. I understand, but you've shown that you can get your program there, and we've been closer than in other times too. 93, we were on probation, we went undefeated. 2004, the way the system was set up, if we'd have had a playoff system, we'd have been in the playoff back then. So we can get there. We've proven over each decade, 80s, 90s, 2000s, and now moving into the next decade, that we can get to the national championship game and we can win one. But it's the problem of staying there, staying consistent. When you look at the body of work over the last 7 years, we're 30 and 34, and that's not what I want out of my team or my program. Is that bad for me as a fan to be not happy with 30 and 34?
Oh, definitely not. I don't think anybody is excited about 30 and 34, but I think we're so caught up. I know it's not about what Alabama is doing, but I feel like as a fan base, we get so caught up in what Alabama is doing that we lose track of how successful Auburn really has been. I think part of it is too, and like what the point that I was making about our age, I was like, I'm 28 now, and I went 24 years, and I didn't see a national championship at all. And so in a 4-year period, I went to 2. So in the last 6 years, you've got 2 national championship appearances, a national championship win, and 2 SEC championship wins. That's one of the best stretches in the school's history. It's just countered by the fact that Alabama won 4 out of 7, and so that gives the impression that we're not doing as good as we need to be doing. But nobody's doing it. We let Ohio State and Alabama dictate what success is, and that's an anomaly. I don't think, like, if you're Georgia and LSU, these teams, you're going 10-2 every year. Those are what teams ask for. If you win 50 games over 4 years.
But we hadn't won 10. We hadn't been consistent 10-2 winners, Andy. And that's the issue, I think, is that, I know Mark Richt lost his job after 15 years, but I said this, I used the term, it had just gotten stale between both of them. Georgia wasn't getting any better, and Mark Richt wasn't getting any better. It was just time to part ways. Neither one of them were doing anything for each other, and he did a phenomenal job winning a lot of football games, but could never get over the hump. But Auburn's problem is you look back, when was the last time we had back-to-back 10-win seasons? So I know we've talked about it.
88 and 89.
I mean that's just really unfathomable from a perspective of where Auburn is in the upper echelon of the SEC, that you can't put together. I mean, South Carolina did it for 3 years, for crying out loud. Over there with Steve Spurrier, and they have no banners hanging up. So, I mean, it's just why. I mean, we've got a bunch of 9-win seasons sprinkled in there, Andy, but it is kind of eye-opening when you think about what you just said. It's been since the 80s since we put 2 10-win seasons back-to-back.
Well, I don't know. I mean, you go back. Now, granted, I mean, you got to take into perspective that they only played 10 games in a season, but I don't know as Auburn has done that.
We'll play more games now.
I think that may be the only time Auburn's ever put that, 10-win seasons back to back.
And it was harder back then than it is now. We ain't done it since.
All the time, I understand what Scott's saying.
Are you saying it was harder then?
Well, it's harder to win 10 games back then because you didn't play as many.
Okay, I misunderstood.
I mean, if you play 12 games a year,
I misunderstood.
And then a bowl game and then a championship game. Okay,
I
mean, I'm just saying.
But to Scott's point here, the level of success, and I go back, and I've been saying this now for a month, but I mean, I've been saying this for years about which would you prefer. Auburn went to the spread. The whole idea was we could get more talent in here. We get offensive talent. We could raise our ceiling. We can win 9 games. We can win 10 games when we got a great defense and we play 3 yards in a cloud of dust. That's all good. That's great. But we could not break through that window that was on top of us. We did that. Now, it's been up and down, and we've had seasons like 2012. We've had seasons like 2008 where it's just miserable to go through. But that has allowed us to get to that level where we can go undefeated and win a national championship. So, take it. I wish we could go and be, a spread team and be, 11 wins every year. Obviously, Clemson has proven they can do it. Yeah. Maybe we need to move to the ACC, but to do it. But
we're evacuating.
Let's go.
We're evacuating conferences now. Let's go to let's see if Tony will stay with us this time. Tony, you with us? Hey, Tony, you with us? I mean, it's
third time is not a charm.
Third time's not a charm. I'm trying, Tony. I mean, as soon as I get the message, I'm trying to pipe you through, but continue to try. But 1-888-9 Tiger 9. Are you there, Tony?
Hello.
Hey, Tony.
How you doing?
Oh, good. How are you?
All right. Yeah,
sounds like your door's beeping in the background.
Okay, I keep hearing you all talking about Auburn and Clemson next year, but I really believe over the spring and summer, I think Auburn will make enough adjustments to either beat Clemson or the game will be pretty close. I just don't see the guy having a game like he had last night. I don't think he had too many of those. Those are just games that, just like Jake Coker had the game against Michigan. Those games just don't come around, every Saturday.
He did have a great individual performance, and you wouldn't think he could maybe put that together every week, but he is a dynamic athlete, and I think Auburn's a really dynamic quarterback away from competing with a team like Clemson. I don't think there's any doubt about that.
Alabama put pressure on him, but he has some real nice throws. They put pressure on him all night, but I think Lance Thompson, if he's still around, he'll make the adjustments to beat Clemson.
Well, Lance Thompson's not here any longer, so I don't think it'll be an opportunity. Well, I mean, he's not going to be here to make days. He's already at South Carolina. He's gone.
Yeah, but I believe Auburn. I set an East egg to a hen egg, and I'm an Alabama fan. Auburn beat Clemson.
Well, I hope you're right, Tony. I'm definitely not going to argue with you. Okay.
Yeah. All right. You all have a good one.
Appreciate the call. 1-888-9 Tiger 9 334-887-34. I mean, the door is ringing.
I hope that beeping is not a heart monitor. Tony's got a problem.
I need to cue the Muschamp interview. I mean, there's just times that I need to have it ready. They got to get it loaded into the system. So, but Scott, I know you're up here without a headset, so you're here on the live mic. He said, living. Tony, let me just kind of give you. Tony said that he feels like in the offseason Auburn can make enough adjustments watching what happened to beat Clemson. He's an Alabama fan calling in too, by the way, but he just felt like Deshaun Watson may have played his best game. He is a phenomenal quarterback, and Nick Saban said after the game that's the best quarterback they played since Cam Newton.
And I don't disagree with, and that's kind of some of the points that if you're an Auburn fan, you have to look at the success that Auburn's had against Alabama when they've had the right pieces in place. Obviously, we're going to take out Cam because that is what it is. But in 2 games that Nick Marshall started, we scored 77 points. You see the last 2 championship games that Alabama's been a part of, 42 points for Ohio State, 40 points for Clemson. So those types of quarterbacks, but it's a common theme with those types of quarterbacks. And when Auburn struggled in this last 5-year period, we had Barrett Trotter, we had Clint Mosley, we had those types of quarterbacks. Now you look at who we've had since then, and you can see the success rate. So obviously this is not a plug for Jeremy, this is not a plug for Sean, anybody. I think that if you're Gus, you may have to look at if we're able to retain somebody like Woody Barrett. You may have to go ahead and play him and just deal with the fact that, you may go 8-4, but I think that that's your best option clearly because we see now that, as you said, our identity is running the football and better when we have a read option quarterback.
Well, Andy, if you want to take Cam Newton and Nick Marshall the 2 years that he played, and then now the performance with Ohio State and the performance for Clemson, I mean, Alabama has won 2 of those matchups and lost 3. So, I mean, if you look at it, they beat Auburn once and they beat
And
Clemson.
Chad Kelly's beat them twice in a row, or Ole Miss has beat them twice in a row.
But you got an opportunity. I mean, that's the blueprint. Everybody thought LSU had the blueprint several years ago to beat Alabama, and in reality, you can't beat them at their own game. They got lucky that night, won 9-6, and they hadn't won since. Since then, Auburn has found and shown that way to win, and so has some of these other teams. And Nick Saban, I mean, I think I said this earlier, Scott and Andy, and I know we got to go to break, but I feel like Nick Saban, if he were standing up here talking, he would say, if you can go 500 against those type quarterbacks every time you match up with them, you got to feel like you won the battle.
It's not just Alabama. That's the system, or that's the formula to beat everybody. Great quarterback play, great skill position, and a great defense to get after the quarterback. You can beat a lot of people if you do that, and certainly Alabama is vulnerable to that as well. Up against a break here, but don't go anywhere. We'll be back, and we'll take your phone calls. On the other side of this break, more Sportscall presented by Lee Marketing Group is on the way.
Got bugs or other unwanted pests? Top Gun Pest Control is who you got to call. When our Top Gun Pest Control truck rolls into your driveway, the most friendly and knowledgeable specialists have arrived to identify, eliminate, and prevent your pest problem. Our professional customer service is our best policy, and we pride ourselves on safe use of products and respect for your property. We have over 20 years of combined experience in the Lake Martin area, and we have recently expanded to cover Auburn and Opelika as well. Call us at 256-234-7375, and we'll put those pests to rest.
Alex City Food Shop is now your local Shell station, located on the corner of Airport Drive and Highway 280. Stop by and experience performance that excites with Shell V-Power gasoline. No other gasoline protects better than Shell nitrogen-enriched gasoline by cleaning performance robbing gunk from intakes and fuel injectors. And we now accept Winn-Dixie Fuel Perks and Fuel Rewards Network cards, so you can save on fuel purchases. See store for details. State-of-the-art touch-free car wash, snacks, cold drinks, ice, and much more for your tailgating needs. Alex City Food Shop on the corner of Airport Drive and Highway 280, where we're always open and appreciate your business.
He does. Bow season is in full swing. The Sure Shot carries bows by Bowtech, Diamond, Elite, Archery, and Obsession, along with your favorite accessories. Spend some time in the archery range to get your bow sighted in and ready for the hunt. Stay warm and dry on your hunt with camo apparel and footwear by Browning, Drake, Under Armour, and Lacrosse. Need a new rifle for gun season? The Sure Shot carries Browning, Ruger, and Savage brands. Add a Loophole, Redfield, or Burris scope so you won't miss a great shot. So stop by the Sure Shot and get your gear on.
What value would you gain working with Lee Marketing Group? With 4 divisions under one umbrella, Sign Source, Lee Apparel, R&B Media, and LMG Baker Advertising Agency, Lee Marketing Group offers a comprehensive approach. From logo design and branding to ad placement and everything in between, LMG can handle it all. For ease of time, cutting edge, results-driven marketing campaigns, think LMG. Lee Marketing Group, your comprehensive marketing solution.
Make your next stop Foshi's Watch Quick Stop on Dable Road in Alex City. They get you started at 5 a.m. every morning with an array of delicious biscuits. They have the lowest prices on candy and drinks, great pellet ice to fill your cooler, a live bait and tackle store, and mine ethanol gas to keep all of your engines running clean and smooth. Don't forget the beer specials with 99-cent Bud Light, Budweiser 16-ounce cans, $10.99 12-pack of Coors Light, Miller Lite, and a case of 8-ounce Budweiser for $10.99. Make it convenient for you. Choose Foshi's Watch, the area's best one-stop shop.
Over the years, Lake Martin Community Hospital has served the Lake Martin area with a personal touch and grown to better serve your needs, including MRI services, a community fitness facility, wellness center, home health services, hospice program, full-service pharmacy, family medical center, and Lake Martin Community Hospital's emergency room is open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Whatever you need, whenever you need it. That's the personal touch that makes the difference.
Tony's pacemaker.
Service, selection,
he
quality,
said,
and
he said, I think Lance Thompson will do it. He said, I think Lance Thompson will do a good job. I said, well, he's not there anymore. And he said, oh, well, it don't matter.
Get full service at the pump with JD's no ethanol.
Who is it? Okay.
JD's Tire and Lube offers any brand of tire you can name with professional installation and fast turnaround. JD's does all your vehicle maintenance, and you can always expect great service on all we do at a price that delivers value. JD's
That's what I'm
Tire and Lube in
saying.
Alex City
I mean, that's
is
the
total
my
package
point.
for all your vehicle needs.
What have I done?
Experience and knowledge from the pros. Russell Do It Center and Building Supply.
Russell Do It Center and Building Supply, locally owned and up.
Welcome back, everyone, to Sports Call on this Tuesday afternoon. Andy Graham, Brett Pritchard, and Scott Hardy here with you for about 40 more minutes, taking your phone calls at 1-888-9-TIGER-9, toll-free, locally at 334-887-3401. Give us a call. Let us know what's on your mind this afternoon. If you've got any comments about any of the things we've talked about, certainly talking about the national championship game last night, talking about its effect on Auburn as they'll take on Clemson, the first game of the year next year. We've kind of bounced around, but we've talked about that for the main part of the show today. Auburn does take on the Vanderbilt Commodores tonight in Memorial Gymnasium. Have not won there since 2000. That's been 15 years. Vandy's won 10 games in a row against the Tigers. Auburn comes in 7-7, 1-2 in the conference. Vanderbilt 8-7, 0-3 in the conference after being predicted to be one of the better teams. That'll be at 8 p.m. on ESPNU tonight. So
we know all about being predicted to be one of the better teams and not kind of falling into
not living up to expectations.
That's Auburn's MO, though. And I know that goes to the consistency standpoint or the point that you guys were trying to make, but I kept making jokes about it all in the preseason. I was like, guys, is this going to finally be the year that Auburn lives up to their preseason hype? And they just haven't. So, our good buddy Justin Clayton wrote that text last night. So we've got a junior college quarterback. With all these, Auburn's coming off a down season. Alabama won the national championship. This sets up to be a successful season for Auburn, but you hate for it to be like that. And you guys are right. Until Auburn consistently can put victories together or successful seasons, then they're not going to get that first tier of college football.
And until Auburn can start developing the talent that they are able to get. I mean, we're getting out recruited. I don't think there's any doubt about that. But then again, everybody's getting out recruited by Alabama. We're getting out recruited by Ole Miss right now. That can't continue. But Hugh Freeze has done a great job.
No fear.
They're gaining some consistency in Oxford right now.
No fear. Somebody's going to go over there and camp out. Somebody's camping out in Oxford, and they are going to make sure that they take that down. You saw that last week on Twitter.
And he's armed too. So
he's armed, so you better watch out because it could get nasty out there. But that's you got to look at your surroundings. I mean, you got to look at the teams in the West, guys, and what they're doing, and LSU and not having the success they're used to, and almost losing Les Miles and Texas A&M, the way they played. It seems like Ole Miss has crept up there toward the top of the echelon there with what Hugh Freeze and Gus Malzahn are real good friends, Scott.
Yeah, and that lets you know that this type of formula can work. We run a different type of offense, but for the most part, the conceptual, they're kind of the same. I just feel like it matters whoever Auburn has a quarterback. I don't even think it matters the defensive side. Obviously, we can't be sloppy out there, but we've seen that we haven't had the best defensive statistically and made a run for the national championship. So, obviously, I think the most important position always in this offense is going to be a quarterback, but not necessarily, a prolific passer or anything like that. Just somebody who can manage the game from a throwing perspective. And when it requires him to be able to run and make plays like Deshaun Watson did last night, then I think that you have an opportunity to beat them, because ultimately that's who we're competing against all the time, always is going to be Alabama. And if our rivals like Alabama and Georgia and now Ole Miss kind of creeping up there, if they're continually getting better and we're staying the same, then that's going to be a problem. And so I think we're too invested in this style of offense to get away from it at this point. So if we do change, it would have to be at the head coaching spot, and that's just another drastic change that Auburn would have to go through, another coaching change, another defensive changes, and so it just puts more pressure on us to succeed long term.
Yeah, absolutely. Next year's a big year for Auburn all the way around. But we keep talking about this, and who else in the country has to deal with a gorilla in the same state as Auburn does? Even USC and UCLA. I mean, it's not even close to being the same thing because that state is so enormous. I mean, Georgia has no. I mean, Georgia Tech is really, if that's their rival, really. I mean, Florida has to deal with Florida State and Miami, but that's not even in the same conference. So Mississippi State and Ole Miss. That's why Ole Miss, I think, is having the success that they've had. I mean, their biggest rival is Mississippi State. Now, you can take over that state and dominate it if you really and it appears that maybe they're headed that way, even though Mississippi State has had some of the best years they've ever had. We'll see what they can do now that the quarterback has moved on. But, Auburn's at a disadvantage is worse than anybody else that they face. And the fact that they have been able to win a national championship, win 2 SEC titles in the last 6 years, I mean, it just speaks to what the tradition and the capability that Auburn has. That word consistency, though, we've been talking about it for so long, and I don't understand. I'm kind of like Brett. I'm at the point now where the money's there, the facilities are there, the desire is there. It's just a matter of getting it done, and it's one of those elusive things right now. And when we get it, we'll probably be. We won't enjoy it as much as we need to, but I hope somehow, some way we find it.
Let's go back to the phone lines. D, you're on Sports Call.
Hey guys, how y'all doing this evening?
Doing good, D. How are you?
Pretty good. You guys were just touching on I think one of you guys mentioned the big gorilla in the room, or the big gorilla in our state that we have to fight against. And then somebody just made a comment, when we get there, I don't know how much we'll enjoy it, or if we'll enjoy it as much as we should. And, and that's the deal. It's an ebb and flow type thing. Saban is that gorilla. It's not necessarily Alabama. And, we had their card 6 years in a row. We won, and now looking back on the year, like, halfway through that, I remember game 4 and 5, you're just like, that's just the way it's supposed to be. That's the way it's supposed to happen. And it'll come back, but it's Saban has a machine that all he's got to do is clock in every day, and it sort of takes care of itself right now. And, that'll change one day. And right now, I think Auburn needs to find that steady quarterback play and don't go the drastic route of getting rid of another coaching staff and going that route. It's tough. It's tough to live inside of that state with that gorilla, but we've been there before, and it'll flow back our direction, and maybe some of this will cause me anyway as an Auburn fan to enjoy it and appreciate it a little bit more than I have.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, when you have these straight, and there's no question that it will swing back, and Auburn is liable. I mean, this just be so Auburn to next year win the SEC title. I mean, they are capable of doing that, and but it's that consistency. Can Auburn ever get to the point where they can be, I hate to even say this, but like a Clemson, where you can win 10, 11 games for 5 years in a row? That's what we'd all like to see, and without having to fight Alabama with Nick Saban there, I'm not sure. I'm not sure we're capable of doing that right now.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. The years of Tuberville and having those 9 and 10 year seasons, they would feel really good right now.
Absolutely, they would.
In about 8 or 9 years, and and that's the guy or a coach who, at the time, people were like, "Will he ever get us over the top?" I think that 2014 was sacrificed, and you see the SEC has got the benefit of the doubt since. But he was a guy who consistently had a team that would play defense, which kept you in games, and we really haven't had that since. And it'll come back around, but it's fun. It's college football, and we'll get it next year, I guess.
Thank you for the call, D.
Appreciate it, D. 1-888-9-TIGER-9 334-887-3401 to be on the program. Up against another break here.
The biggest part of the biggest problem with the 6 year, and it was a great 6 years. One SEC title.
Yeah, that's it. You did
one SEC title.
Now But you know what Auburn fans, again, it goes back into that when Alabama was down, we weren't taking care of business otherwise. There was which year was it? I can't remember. Was it 5 or 6 where Georgia came into Auburn and played at 11:30 kickoff? We were number 2 in the country. And they came in and killed us because Brandon Cox threw, 4 or 5 interceptions in that game. It was a miserable morning, raining and all that. But, you just can't do that.
11-2.
11-2. You lost to Arkansas and Georgia, and neither one of them very good that year. And that's why, there were some flaws back then too, but Auburn fans were just fine and dandy because we're beating Alabama every year. Well, now that you get a little taste, like what Scott said, of the modern era and getting up here where you can get the national championship, well, your expectations have gone higher. And I think that's great. You shouldn't just be content going 8-4 and winning beating Alabama. That shouldn't be your goal. That should be part of your goal to get to the SEC championship game and then to get a national championship game. Shadow, if you'll hold on with us, we'll catch you on the other side of this break.
Don't go anywhere. More Sportscall presented by Home Place Mortgage right after this.
Applicants must be able to work 40 hours a week, and turf experience is a plus. If you're interested in the position, please email aulinksjobs@gmail.com. No phone calls, please. Again, that's all one word, aulinksjobs@gmail.com. Auburn Links is an equal opportunity employer located off Shelter Parkway in Auburn.
There's nothing like the signature honey glazed spiral sliced ham from Honey Baked. Hey, this is Crystal. From catering corporate meetings to providing box lunches for your next event, Honey Baked Ham is just what you're looking for. including full meals with sides and desserts. Don't forget to stop by our deli for lunch or dinner, open 10 to 7, Monday through Saturday. You don't have to wait for the holidays. Plan your Honey Baked Feast today. Give us a call at 741-8411. Stop by and see us on Gateway Drive in Opelika or order online at myhoneybakedstore.com. Honey Baked Ham, perfect every time. We guarantee it.
Children placed in foster care need safe, stable, and nurturing environments to live in until they can either reunite with their parents or establish their own permanent family relationships. There is an urgent need in Lee County for many more families to come forward and serve these young children. We need families to open up their hearts and their homes for children in need. The Lee County Department of Human Resources is now recruiting foster and adopted families. To learn more about fostering and adoption, please call our office at 334-737-1100. Please join us in our endeavor to help our foster children.
Everybody knows you've been stepping on my toes, and I'm getting pretty tired of it. You keep stepping out of line and messing with my mind.
Welcome back, everyone, to Sports Call on this Tuesday afternoon. Andy Graham and Scott Hardy here with you for about 25 more minutes, taking your phone calls at 1-888-9-TIGER-9 toll-free or locally at 334-887-3401. And I think we'll go to the hotline. Shadow, you're on Sports Call.
Well, I appreciate you letting me get on today. Mr. Hand, now he used to be a co-coordinator at Tulsa, is that correct, with Malzahn?
That's correct.
Well, is there any chance in the world that this could mean that Mr. Lashley could be on his way out soon?
I think there's a chance. I mean, I don't know that for a fact, but they seem to work well together at Tulsa. They had number one offense in the country 2 years in a row.
Well, you know something, I was just wondering, since I am an Auburn fan, I wanted to call today and ask y'all, is there any sport associated with Auburn that I could listen to or watch where they might win a game? You know, where they might win whatever it is they're competing at. Have you got any suggestions?
Gymnastics or softball?
Really? Well, you know, I was kind of thinking, what about a man's sport? Is there anything at Auburn, or we ain't got no more men up there running this stuff?
Well, I think we'll win a few more games in basketball, so you take your chances. Listen to the game tonight.
Well, I'm gonna listen, but you know something? I got to say, we need to send the old boys in the white coat down there to get one of them basketball players, because that old boy, he's out of touch. You know, somebody needs to put that old boy on some medication, don't they?
Which boy is that?
Well, I figure it's the one that don't listen to the coach and the one that goes around with his lips poked out all the time. Because, yeah, he's getting put on the bench because he's a mental case. And, you know, I just don't know. You know, I don't guess we're going to get that 7-footer and we're gonna put that old boy that's, we've been waiting all year to get that old boy. You know, he might as well go ahead and graduate. I don't guess we're ever going to see cheer for. Is that the case?
I think he retook the ACT. I'm not sure, or he's going to. It's kind of a last-ditch effort for him to get in school. I don't know if I guess that's still pending.
Well, I kind of hate to hear that. I tell you what, I'm gonna hang on for a little while longer so I can start listening to them lady softball players. You know, they got a coach, they got a team. You know something? If the men at Auburn ain't going to stand up and win a game or two at whatever they do, we got some daggone women over at Auburn that'll make the men look like they got a ways to go. War Eagle, we're doing good over at Auburn. Thank you very much.
I think that was half-hearted.
I think I was tongue in cheek.
I heard somebody say the other day, "Thank God for Title IX." You know, at Auburn right now, as the women, number 10 in the country in gymnastics defeated number 12 Oregon State, the first match of the season as they went on the road to do that. I mean, they're a great looking team. The softball team looking it's national title or bust here for this year.
I'm going to say something. I mean, Shadow's got a good point. I mean, in the way he ended that call, hey, man, War Eagle, everything's great down here, just and that's you. I mean, where do you want – I mean, if you're an Auburn fan, you ought to – and you're passionate about your football team or whatever it is, you ought to want to have what that is across the state. I mean, there's nothing wrong with yearning to be on top all the time and putting yourself in position. If you win 10, 11 games consistently, Andy, you'll put yourself in that position more times than not, and you won't feel like every time that you have a chance every 4 or 5 years that it rolls around, or every 3 years, or however often it comes, that you just got to have it to happen right then because you don't know when it's going to happen again. And I know Alabama is, again, it's in an era right now that's unprecedented. They went through a lot of turmoil in the 2000s. That decade was not fun for them. They struggled mightily into the 90s and into the early 2000s, and it was, they felt like they never were going to beat Auburn. I mean, you get to that point it just the ebbs and flows. College football, what Auburn fans yearn for is consistency within their own program and being who we think we can be year in and year out, and not going in with preseason expectations to be the SEC champ and going 7-6 and going to the Birmingham Bowl. I mean, that should not be acceptable from an Auburn standard.
Well, it doesn't happen overnight, and it takes a lot of – it doesn't happen with one man.
Actually, it does happen overnight.
Well, it happens for them to be good, but it doesn't last. I'm talking about building a consistent
That's my point.
Program.
You do it quickly, and you build it on sandstone, and you catch lightning in a bottle with 2 dynamic quarterbacks and with some JUCO guys that help you get there.
So the question is Gus Malzahn, do you believe in him? That, and go back and look, and I think 2013, as fun as it was, maybe the worst thing that ever happened to Gus Malzahn, because you look at 2012 and what the program was. In building from that, if we had gone 7-6, 8-5, and then 13, and then 12-2, boy, we'd all be, elated and thinking we're going in the right direction. He's building something special here. But to start at that and then kind of, go down these 2 years, it's going to take some building. And there's a lot. It takes a lot of different people. As far as coaches are concerned, it takes administration, it takes the players, it takes everybody. And again, it doesn't happen overnight. Can we build this? Is he the right guy to do this? Do you still believe in him? That's the question every Auburn fan has to ask themselves right now.
I want to ask you something and change it to another team in the conference right now. How sick does Ole Miss feel this morning? How sick does Ole Miss feel when they had Arkansas beat in a lateral play in that game at the end? Really cost them their chance to go to the SEC championship game. I mean, it really did.
It put Alabama in the national title game.
It put them in there. Alabama had to win out, but when they lost that game and it gave Alabama the edge again, then that was it. I mean, Ole Miss, all they had to do is win that ball game at Arkansas. They had to finish that game. They could lose a game, and they did, and they would still have that tiebreaker over Alabama. They couldn't lose 2. So how sick is that? How sick is Ole Miss right now? Because they've never been to the SEC championship game. They're the only team in the Western Division outside of Texas A&M who joined the league, just a few years ago, that hasn't been to the SEC title game. So let's go to the phone lines and pick up Luke. Luke, you're on Sportscall.
Hey, guys. How are y'all today?
I'm good. Are you awake out there?
Yeah, man. I'm telling you, it's tough being me today. I was up for about, 40 straight hours or whatever it was. I did the one-day junket out to Glendale, and it was a blast. Wouldn't trade it for anything. But I'll tell you that everybody was giddy and on cloud 9 from the stadium back to the bus. But once that bus got about halfway to the airport, it was a longer trip because there's so much traffic. Everybody was about roll, tied it out, and like, where's my bed? And I said, I got bad news for everybody. We still got about 3.5 hours until we even get close to 1. So, but yeah, it was a blast. I had a good time, and certainly I'll talk about the trip from an Alabama perspective more on Sports Blitz Live tonight. But I wanted to say something you guys are talking about, and I know it's a sticky wicket for y'all right now. I mean, I'm not going to lie. I mean, it's got to be tough to look over there because I didn't even appreciate. I know we Alabama fans had all said 4 and 7 years. Gosh, that would be really great.
I didn't even appreciate how big a deal it was, and the way that game went last night. For Saban to have to grow his game and have to mature and change around some of the way he thought, you could tell forever Saban would have never thought of doing something like an onside kick in a tie ball game in the fourth quarter of a national championship. I mean, he would have looked down upon that, and he realized, hey, I've got to change some of the ways I think too. And so it was special to me to see him change his methodology as a coach a little bit. But the one thing that struck to me coming out of there, everybody, to a man, Clemson and Alabama people alike, kept saying, well, Clemson will be back next year, so it's no big deal. We'll be back next year. What they don't understand, and what Auburn does understand, is how hard it is to be consistent with this thing. And that's what makes Alabama so special in these last 8 years, is they've been number one at some point in the year for the last 8 years, period. I don't know anybody that's ever done that before. And it's incredibly difficult. And Auburn has been to 2 national championship games, but they've also been on the other side of the coin where they finished last in the SEC West because it's hard. When you've got the mark on your back, it's difficult. Next year, Clemson brings back a ton of people, and they bring back one of the best quarterbacks, maybe the most dynamic quarterback I've seen since Johnny Manziel. But you can bring back all those people, but when you're the one under the gun the entire season and you've got the whole summer to hear about how good you are, it's going to be really, really difficult. And I think Clemson's about to find that out.
Yeah, Clemson is in a position that they've never been in before, or been in, hadn't been in quite some time, and trying to go back and you turn around and you were so close to winning it, but now you got to start all over again. I mean, you got to make that whole run again and get yourself back in that position to win. That's why when you get there, you want to win it. So it is tough. And Luke, I know you love Johnny Manziel as a college quarterback, but Nick Saban did say last night, and I thought this was pretty impressive, that that's the best quarterback that Alabama had faced since Cam Newton. And I think that's right. I mean, Johnny Manziel did some great things at Texas A&M, and obviously he was their program for 2 years, and they haven't done anything since either. But he didn't win anything. He won a Heisman Trophy, but he didn't win Texas A&M anything. And Deshaun Watson and Cam Newton, the same kind of guy that can hurt you throwing, that can hurt you running, and I thought that was big words there, because Deshaun Watson has propelled himself up there into the echelon of some of the best quarterbacks we've seen in the modern era.
Yeah, hey, listen, I'll take it a step further. I mean, I probably sold Deshaun Watson short, to be honest with you, because I think as a passer, he's better than either one of them. I mean, Cam Newton's kind of an unstoppable force when he's running. I mean, he's got a little Derrick Henry in him. I mean, he's that big and he's that fast. How are you bring him down unless you get him early and get him at his leg? But Deshaun Watson was so effortless when he was running. I mean, it felt like he was just jogging away from Alabama players who had spent their whole offseason slimming down by 10 pounds to get faster to take on guys like him. I mean, and Watson is also doing it, and I think he needs extra credit for this. At Clemson, a place known for having a verb named after it. And, I mean, everybody said, well, you're always going to Clemson. You're going to do Clemsoning. And Deshaun Watson has helped them overcome that. And I think he needs some extra credit because, yes, they don't play an SEC schedule, but, he had to overcome a lot of stigmas in that program. And Watson is phenomenal. I mean, my goodness gracious, because you have asked for 3 more deserving candidates at the Heisman Trophy ceremony than the 3 that were there, and Henry, McCaffrey, and Watson. I think all 3 of them are just unbelievable. And it just happened to go to Henry because you can only give 1 trophy. But, again, my point remains, next year, everybody's going to say, and me too, that, hey, Auburn's got their hands full of that first game, and I don't know how in the world Auburn's going to do it. Well, maybe Clemson will win that game. But Clemson also has to go to Florida State, and they'll also have in-state games, in-conference games that will be incredibly difficult because they will be everybody's preseason number 1. And I'd be willing to bet dollars to donuts they don't make it through unscathed.
Yeah, going to be real tough. Well, Luke, we appreciate the call, brother, and we'll talk to you again soon.
All right, guys.
Thanks so much. David, if you'll hold on with us, we'll come back, get you on the other side of this break.
Don't go anywhere. More Sports Call, one final segment on the other side. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back, everyone, to the final segment of the Tuesday Sports Call. Andy and Brett taking you home to 6 o'clock here. Still time to get that final phone call in. 1-888-9-TIGER-9 toll free or locally at 334-887-3401. And we'll go to the hotline.
David, you're on Sports Call.
Hey, guys, thanks for taking my call. I'll try to be quick.
No, you're good. Go ahead.
No, I've been on record. I think, without going into I feel a lot of the same as you guys do with the inconsistencies and a lot of the stuff that, that Shadow says I agree with. And I don't know how you guys feel, but I don't think Gus is the guy, and I don't really think he was qualified for the job when he got hired. But I don't think it's really a Gus issue or a problem with him. I think it's more of like an AD, just the way Auburn goes about their business. Because the one consistent thing in the inconsistency has been the AD through all of this.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think there's a lot of people out there that agree with you that maybe from a leadership standpoint that, maybe it's not getting done at the top and there's too many Chiefs and not enough Indians.
I definitely think there's too many hands in the pot, and I don't think it's that Gus doesn't get to hire his guys, but I think there's many, or maybe, the committees, there may be too many opinions for people, and I think Auburn's been just successful enough with every random person they've hired, qualified or not, that they think they can get it done this way. Because if it were up to me, I'd fire Gus today and I'd give Chip Kelly whatever he wanted if he would come. Now, here's my question to you guys. And I know those coaches aren't out there much, and I think that's what it's going to take is if you get a coach like that, well, regardless, I think Auburn needs to get a proven coach, whether it's FCS or whatever, and let him coach. Do you think if we had the same opportunity that Alabama did with Saban, do you think Auburn would have even done it? Do you think they would have the stones to offer him like total control, no buyout, he can walk away or whatever and let him coach? Do you think the AD at Auburn would have made the same choice?
Probably not. If Auburn was in the same position as Alabama and having gone through a Mike Shula type,
they went through a bunch of Mikes.
Well, yeah, they did go through several Mikes. It depends on how desperate you are, and I'm not sure Auburn was that desperate quite at that point.
I don't think so. And the tough part too, you guys talked about the inconsistency. The inconsistency is even there when Alabama's not that good.
Yeah, no doubt.
Like you guys mentioned it, and there's plenty of players to go around and the player development and all that. I'm with you guys. It's a mystery.
Yeah. David, we appreciate the call, brother. And Anthony, sorry we couldn't get to you, my man. Right there toward the end of the show, very short segment right there at the end, but call back tomorrow if you don't mind.
Absolutely. We appreciate so much all of you out there joining us today. Appreciate all of our callers. Sports Call back on the air tomorrow at 4. Will and Tom will be with you. For Brett Pritchard, I'm Andy Graham saying so long for now. We'll talk again soon. You've been pointed to, Scott.
I have been appointed.